I never believed in curses. Not really. I thought superstition was for children and small towns with too much time on their hands. But as I drove along the winding road to my uncle's old countryside property, an uneasy feeling crept up my spine. The house was massive. 2 stories of peeling paint, broken windows, and a garden choked by weeds and gnarled roots. Fog hugged the ground like silent hands trying to pull me back. I parked the car and stepped out, my boots sinking into wet earth. The air smelled like rust and decay, a metallic tang that made my throat dry. I laughed nervously. "Just old age and neglect," I muttered. But the house groaned under the wind's weight, and I felt eyes watching me from behind the broken shutters. As I opened the front door, a chill swept through me. The wooden floors creaked with every step, and a faint whisper brushed against my ear, almost like a breath. "Come, come." I spun, but the empty hallway stared back at me, dark and silent, except for the sound of my own heartbeat. The first night was deceptively quiet. I set up in the master bedroom, unpacked my few belongings, and tried to write, but a faint, sibilant hiss kept tugging at the edges of my mind. I told myself it was just the wind, the old house settling, my imagination running wild. But then I heard it clearly. "I see you." I froze, clutching my pen. My breath fogged the cold air. The voice was soft, insistent, almost pleading. I convinced myself I was dreaming, yet the hair on my arms stood rigid. Every floorboard groan, every whisper of wind, seemed like a message, a warning. I tried to sleep, pulling the covers over my head, but the whispers followed me, curling around my ankles, murmuring words I could not understand in a language older than memory itself. By morning, I was already on edge. I wandered the halls, notebook in hand, trying to convince myself it was all imagination. But the shadows told another story. They twisted unnaturally along the walls, moving against the light, as if they had a life of their own. I stopped in front of a large cracked mirror. My reflection stared back, and then it didn't. A pale, twisted face with hollow eyes replaced mine for a heartbeat. I stumbled back, heart hammering. Every step I took, I felt unseen eyes tracking me, and the whispers grew louder, circling the house like a living entity, growing sharper with each passing hour. That night, fear and curiosity collided. I grabbed a candle and crept up the attic stairs, the wood groaning under my weight like a scream frozen in time. The attic smelled of dust, mildew, and something else, something rancid and familiar yet unknowable. Trunks lined the walls, some spilling over with tattered clothing, broken toys, and forgotten heirlooms. Faded portraits watched me with unblinking eyes. One, a young girl in a dark dress, seemed to twitch her head ever so slightly as I passed. Then I saw it. A small leather-bound journal lying atop a dusty trunk. The leather was cracked, brittle with age. I felt drawn to it, as if it was expecting me. I opened the journal, and the first page made me recoil. Jagged handwriting sprawled across the yellowed paper, stories of shadows moving independently, voices calling from walls, and children who vanished without a trace. I turned the pages, heart pounding, until the last entry stopped me cold. They are awake. They watch through the eyes of the forgotten. I hear them calling my name, and I cannot leave. If you read this, you will not leave either. A cold gust swept through the attic, extinguishing my candle. The whispers surged louder than ever. "Come, come, come." I stumbled back, nearly dropping the journal, my hands trembling uncontrollably. The house seemed to pulse around me. The whispers guided me downstairs to the basement, a place I had avoided since arrival. Damp earth and mold hit me first. My candle flickered violently. At the far corner, a door carved with symbols I didn't recognize glimmered faintly in the candlelight. The whispers became insistent, screaming almost in unison. "Open it! Open it! Join us!" My hand shook as I reached for the handle. Something beyond reason compelled me to turn it. I opened the door and reality warped. The basement transformed into a space impossibly larger than the house. Pale, faceless figures floated in the darkness, circling me. Their whispers united into a chorus. "You belong. You belong. You belong. I ran. The floor seemed endless, the shadows pursuing. Their cold, invisible hands brushed against me, their voices burrowing into my mind. I stumbled outside at dawn, gasping for air. The fog lingered, following me, and the whispers never ceased. Weeks passed. I tried leaving. Roads twisted back to the house. GPS failed, my car refused to start, and phones refused signal. Even in town, I felt their presence. Mirrors, screens, reflections, they were everywhere. Now I write this in trembling hands, hoping someone will understand. If you ever inherit a house like this, run. Do not stay. Do not listen. Once they know your name, once they call you, you will never leave. I never believed in the things people whispered about the old Harrington estate. It sat at the edge of our town, a crumbling skeleton of a house, its windows like hollow eyes staring into the forest beyond. I had always been drawn to the unknown, to things people avoided. That curiosity had gotten me into trouble before, but I never imagined the kind of trouble awaiting me here. It started on a foggy evening. I remember the mist curling around the skeletal trees, swallowing everything beyond a few feet. I had my camera with me, thinking I might capture something interesting for my blog. The town had its rumors, noises at night, doors opening on their own, shadows moving across the halls, but I dismissed them, that is, until I set foot inside. The air hit me first, thick, cold, smelling of decay. Each step I took echoed unnaturally, like the house was whispering my name. I made my way to the grand staircase, the wood creaking under my weight. Then I noticed it, the portraits lining the walls, the eyes in those paintings. They followed me. Not just that, but I swore they shifted slightly when I wasn't looking directly. My heart began to race. I tried to shake it off, focusing on the dust-covered chandelier above, its crystals reflecting the pale light from the fractured windows. The further I went, the heavier the air felt, pressing down on my chest. And then I heard it, a faint scratching from the floor above. I froze. The sound was deliberate, slow, almost as if something wanted me to follow. I debated leaving, rationalizing it was probably just the old house settling. But curiosity, stubborn, reckless curiosity, pulled me forward. With each step toward the staircase leading to the attic, the scratching grew louder, more urgent. I gripped the banister, my knuckles white, and climbed. At the top, a long hallway stretched before me. The wallpaper peeled like shedding skin, revealing something darker beneath. I paused at a door at the far end. The scratching stopped. Absolute silence fell, oppressive and suffocating. I slowly reached for the doorknob, trembling, the metal icy against my palm. I twisted it. Nothing. Yet I felt it. An undeniable presence, waiting. My reflection in the glass panel of the door wasn't just my own. Behind me, just for a fraction of a second, I saw something. Tall, dark, featureless. I spun around. Empty hallway. My breath came in short, harsh gasps. The temperature had dropped. My foggy breath hovered in front of me like a warning. I backed away from the door, but the sense of being watched didn't fade. Every shadow seemed alive, every whisper of the wind sounding like a voice calling my name. That's when I realized something terrifying. I wasn't alone. And that's when I heard it. A low, guttural voice from behind the wall whispering, "Finally, you came." I couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs refused to obey. That voice, low, guttural, and impossibly close, echoed in my mind long after it had stopped. The hallway behind me was empty, but my skin prickled as if invisible eyes were drilling into me. My camera swung loosely in my hand, a futile shield against the unknown. Slowly, I inched toward the staircase, desperate to escape. The old wood groaned beneath my weight, each step sounding like a death knell in the oppressive silence. And then I heard it again, the scratching. Only this time it wasn't coming from the attic. It was beneath me, deep within the floorboards. The sound moved, as if something, or someone, was crawling just under the surface following me. I stumbled back toward a wall, heart hammering. The portraits lining the hallway caught my eye again, but now they weren't just watching. Their eyes seemed to bleed, dark streaks forming on the canvas. I blinked hard. No, that wasn't possible. My mind was playing tricks, or maybe the house was. And then I felt it. A breath, cold and rancid, against the back of my neck. I spun around. Nothing. But the air carried a whisper, unintelligible yet filled with menace. My hands shook as I fumbled to turn on my flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, landing on a doorway I hadn't noticed before. It led down a narrow staircase into the bowels of the house. My instincts screamed, "Don't go down." But something stronger, a perverse, almost magnetic curiosity, pulled me forward. Step by step, I descended. The air grew colder, heavier, and the smell of rot intensified. The walls here were slick, covered in something dark and wet, sticky under my fingertips. The scratching followed, closer now, circling beneath me like a predator stalking prey. I could hear it clearly, nails against wood dragging slowly. Suddenly the floor shivered under my feet. A low growl resonated from somewhere deep in the house, vibrating through the walls, rattling my teeth. My flashlight flickered, then went out. Panic surged. I struck it against the wall. Light flickered back, revealing the room beneath, an old storage cellar filled with overturned furniture and broken crates. And in the corner, a shadow crouched, completely still, except for its eyes. They glowed faintly like embers in the dark fixed on me. I froze. The shadow moved, not toward me, but as if acknowledging my presence, testing my reaction. And then, a sound that made my blood run cold, a slow, deliberate clapping, echoing in the empty cellar. No hands visible, just clapping. The walls seemed to close in. The temperature plummeted further. My breath puffed out in white clouds, and I realized with horror that my heartbeat was echoing louder than my footsteps. Suddenly, the shadow disappeared. Just like that. Vanished. I screamed, stumbling backward into a pile of crates. But the noise didn't seem to leave the cellar. It reverberated, multiplying, as if the house itself had learned to mock me. That's when I heard it again, closer, from the darkness behind a stack of old boxes. "You shouldn't have come." I bolted, running up the stairs blindly, slamming into the walls, desperate for the hallway. The scratching, the whispering, the unseen presence, everything chased me upward, relentless. When I finally reached the first floor, I found the main hallway altered. The door I had entered through was gone. In its place, a wall perfectly smooth, unbroken. I realized then the horrifying truth. This house didn't just trap people, it wanted to consume them, warp them, erase their existence, and I was already inside its mouth. I stumbled backward into the hallway, gasping for breath, my heart hammering so loudly I feared it would shatter my ribcage. The door I had come through had vanished completely, replaced by a solid, unbroken wall. My camera, still dangling from my wrist, clicked and whirred automatically, capturing images I couldn't see yet. It felt like the house was alive, watching, learning, toying with me. I tried to steady myself, but the hallway itself seemed wrong. The walls pulsed subtly, like veins filled with black, sluggish blood. The portrait's eyes followed me more aggressively now, darting as if alive. Some faces even twisted mid-glance, mouths opening to emit silent screams. I shook my head violently, trying to dispel the impossible images, but every step I took was met with new horrors. Then I heard it. The laughter. A soft, childlike giggle echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. My stomach churned. I could feel it surrounding me, curling around my legs, brushing my arms. It was in the air, inside my head, whispering promises I didn't want to hear. "Come play. Stay forever." I ran blindly into a room that hadn't been there before, a library but not ordinary. The books were black, their spines unreadable, and when I touched them, the pages screamed. Real screaming. Sharp, guttural, human. I yanked my hand away, terrified. One of the books tumbled from its shelf, landing open on the floor, and in its pages I saw my own reflection staring back at me, but distorted, eyes hollow, mouth frozen in a scream. I turned away, desperate to escape, but the library itself had other plans. The door I had entered through slammed shut and vanished, replaced by shelves that stretched infinitely. The walls shifted subtly, bending the room into a labyrinth. Panic surged. The laughter grew louder, joined by whispers in languages I didn't recognize. Words, half-formed, half-understood, promising torment. A movement in the corner caught my eye. Another shadow, taller, thinner than the first. It moved unnaturally, limbs bending in impossible ways. Its head tilted as if studying me, analyzing my fear. The air thickened, pressing against my chest. My lungs burned. I tried to back away, only to realize the floor was changing. Sections of it rose, twisted, forming a narrow bridge of warped wood over an abyss I couldn't see. I had no choice. Trembling, I stepped onto it, my camera swinging wildly. The shadow followed, always just at the edge of my vision. The library's shelves seemed to breathe, inhaling and exhaling, guiding me toward something. I didn't know what, but the oppressive certainty told me I had no other path. Suddenly, the floor collapsed behind me, plunging into darkness. The laughter stopped. Silence. Thick, heavy, suffocating. And then a whisper directly into my ear, chilling me to the bone. "You're mine now." I spun, searching for the source, but the bridge beneath me stretched endlessly. Ahead, a faint, flickering light promised escape, or perhaps another trap. Every instinct screamed danger, but I had no choice. I had to move forward. With each step, the shadows pressed closer, the air grew colder, and the library's whispers became a chorus of torment echoing inside my skull. I realized I had entered a world where time, space, and reality no longer existed as I knew them, and I had no idea if I would ever leave. I stared into the pit, heart pounding, my breath freezing in the icy air. The swirling black fog seemed to pull at me, tugging not just at my body, but at my very mind. The grotesque figures leaned closer, their twisted faces pressed with expressions of hunger and torment. I could feel them reaching for my thoughts, my memories, my soul. I stumbled backward, but the floor beneath me was gone. The edges of the chamber dissolved into nothingness, replaced by shadows that writhed and slithered like living liquid. I was suspended above the pit, dangling from a narrow ledge of warped stone. The whispers grew deafening, voices layering over each other, some pleading, some laughing, some screaming in terror. And then one voice, louder than the rest, whispered into my mind, "It's time to belong." My instincts screamed to jump, to escape, but I knew that anywhere I landed would be just another trap. The camera in my hand slipped from my grasp and fell into the fog. I heard it shatter, but even the sound seemed swallowed by the darkness. I realized then the horrifying truth. The house wasn't just a building, it was a predator, and I was its prey. The fog surged upward, twisting into a shape that was both familiar and impossible. My own face, screaming, distorted, reaching out to me. The shadow figures followed, merging with the darkness. I tried to run, but my feet sank into the ledge as if the stone itself had become quicksand. Every movement became a struggle, every breath a battle. And then I felt it, a cold, inescapable grip around my chest, pulling me toward the pit. My mind screamed, memories of my life flashing in my eyes, desperate pleas for help that would never come. I clawed at the edges, but the ledge crumbled beneath me. As I fell, the last thing I saw before the blackness consumed me was the swirling fog opening its mouth-like center, ready to devour everything I was. The whispers became a singular voice. "Welcome home." Then, nothing. Silence. Darkness. an emptiness so complete it pressed against the edges of my mind. I was gone, consumed, forgotten, and somewhere, deep within the estate, the shadows shifted. The pit pulsed again, waiting for the next curious soul foolish enough to wander inside. The house had fed,